So features of a circle from its graph. So there's actually a graph of the circle for these problems down here. Sometimes the graph pops up in a space you might not be expecting, but let's go back up here and look at the question. So the center of the circle here is giving us a bunch of options, so let's go take a look. Now on this circle, if I go, alright, so we're working. So if I go all the way left here to the -6 and I come up to +4, that is where I have the center of my circle. So right there. So this point we give with the x and then the y value, so -6 and +4 should be where the center of the circle is. So I'll choose that. Now it says the circle passes through the points -3, 5. What is the radius? So -3, 5 is up here, right? And I can even do that in blue, so it's a different color. It's right up here. That's where that point is, -3, 5. So it's asking us for the radius. The radius is the distance to the center of the circle. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can use your distance formula because you now have 2 points, or you can use the Pythagorean theorem. I think it might be easier to do the Pythagorean theorem. So I'm just going to erase this to make it a little bit clearer. And we'll go -3, 5. We'll put that point right here. And then I've also got the center. So there's a point right here. So you should have your 2 points. Now if you count over the distance that would make a triangle here, and then you count the distance up, this makes a right triangle, where the distance that we want to find is the hypotenuse. So the number of boxes over, 1, 2, 3, you have a 3, and then the number of boxes up is just a 1. So if you use your Pythagorean theorem, you should be able to solve this. So excuse the wonderful handwriting here, but 1 squared plus 3 squared should be equal to our hypotenuse squared. Now 1 squared is 1, 3 squared is 9, and that's going to be equal to our hypotenuse squared, which I guess we'll just put the letter C for now. 1 plus 9 is 10 is equal to C squared. And then when we take the square root of both sides, that will be the square root of 10, right? Because we got to take the square root of this side and the square root of this side. So we end up with the square root of 10. So let's move on to our next question. We are looking for the center of the circle again. So I'll scroll down and look at my circle. Now keep in mind each box in this figure is half of a unit. You can see that they go over by half units instead of a whole unit, so just be careful when you're looking at that. So anyways, from 0, it looks like the circle is not moved left or right at all, but it goes up to 2.5, and it looks like this is our center of the circle right here. So 0 and +2.5 should be where our center is. Now it says the circle passes through the point -1.5 and 2.5. So -1.5 and 2.5. 2.5 is right up here. What is the radius? So this one is a little bit easier than the last one because the distance from the point to the center is a nice horizontal line. And it's not at an angle. We don't have to use the Pythagorean theorem. We can just count. Now just be careful because we said each box is half of a unit. So 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1, plus 1 is another half. So this distance is 1.5. Just always make sure that you read the scale on your graphs correctly. So this is going to be 1.5. That should be the distance to that radius. So each one of these questions, they just give you similar things here. So again, it's asking us what is the center of the circle. On this one, the center of our circle looks like we go over to about 5. And it looks like my center is right here. So over at 5 and down at -3. So +5, -3. It says the circle passes through the point 3, 1. 3, 1. So I've made that point. And it says, what is its radius? Now again, the radius is the distance from the center to a point on the circle, and that is going to be this distance here. So again, you can use your distance formula, and if you were to look that up, you can find the distance, you know, between 2 points, x and y. But again, I recommend using the Pythagorean theorem. So just make this into a right triangle. You could either go to the right here like I did, or you could set it up and go down underneath as well. So you could do this yellow triangle here, or if I undo that, you could also, oh, that's a bad line. You could go down and then over. So either one of these ways is going to give you a correct answer. So I'll just leave this one since I've already done it. Now, this distance is 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So I believe that distance is 4 on the left side of this. So I should be able to set this up where I've got 4 squared plus 2 squared is equal to my hypotenuse, which I can label as c, or you know what, I should label this as r for the radius. So this is the radius squared. So 4 squared is 16, and 2 squared is 4. So 16 and 4 is 20. So 20 is equal to the radius squared. And then I'll have to take the square root of 20. So again, excuse my writing here, but the radius should be equal to the square root of 20. And that's what I have here. For our next question, I bet it's going to ask me for the center and a radius. So the center here goes over to -3. So you can see that's right where the center is. And then if I even just put a cross right through the circle, you can tell it's -3 and then 0. It's right on the x-axis, or sorry, right on the x-axis. So the y is not going to change at all. So this center should be at -3, 0. And it says the circle passes through the point -4, -1. -4, -1 is down here. Keep in mind, you can see that each box is 1/2 in this problem. So I have to go from the center down to this point. So again, you can make your triangle either way. You could go down and to the left, you could go to the left and then down. Either one's going to be fine. I'm going to go down and to the left just because it's a little bit easier here. And you've got a triangle. So and just in case you didn't get it on the other questions, like this triangle, if I were to just take it and draw it a little bit bigger, you've got, oh, let's make that a little bit better. You've got a triangle where these are both 1, because you've got this distance here, which is 1, and this distance here, which is 1. And you're trying to, and it's a right triangle, and you're trying to find the hypotenuse. So this is what your radius is going to be. So again, that's where I can do 1 squared plus 1 squared is equal to the radius squared. Now that 1 squared is 1, 1 squared is 1, so these both combine to be 2. So you get 2 is equal to r squared, and then when you take the square root to solve, take the square root, and you end up with r is equal to the square root of 2. And that's how you solve questions like this.